prioritizing the fundamentals in this hygiene industrial environment, which is very much important. Your very basic aspects thought they were completed, but usually they are not, especially in OT side. Small things like asset inventory or manage vulnerabilities or implement some strict network segmentation.
Welcome to the Industrial Cybersecurity Insider. In each episode, we dive into the world of industrial cybersecurity. Join us as we cover the latest trends, innovations, and practical insights as we talk with leaders and practitioners across the industry. Gear up and let's get into this week's episode.
Hi, this is Dino, and today I have with me Adeel, who is currently in Dubai. Is that correct?
Yes, Dino. Yeah. Yes, Dino. I'm in Dubai.
Yeah, well, welcome to the show. This is the first time we've met, and so I'd like to learn a little bit about you and your background and how long you've been working in the field around cybersecurity. So if you could give us, your audience, just a brief bio.
Thanks, Dino. It's a pleasure to be here, especially, alongside with you, who is like seasoned cybersecurity expert for I think 4 decades of global IT and industrial control systems experience. So I'm really, really happy to be here. As of me, I'm into as a cybersecurity strategist and a researcher with over 16 years of experience now. And my career spanned from technical roles to the GRC roles. So not only on the hands-on expertise, but also the business-oriented perspective. Currently, I'm engaged as virtual CISO for some of the organizations. I have 50 plus industry certifications, including CISSP, CISO, CEH, project management, and others. Whereas I'm author of 3 books in cybersecurity and AI space, and I'm doing my doctorate also in the same space into cybersecurity and AI.
Perfect. Well, it sounds like you're really one heck of a researcher based on your credentials and your experience. Is there any particular verticals that you focus on, or are you in the manufacturing space, or is it wide open as far as the clients that you work with or the research that you do in specific fields?
No, it's wide open. Earlier, I used to be more emphasizing on the IT part, but as soon as I realized that OT is not only about operations, but also life set at stake, and there are much bigger stakes here. So I focus more on OT side now.
Yeah. So I understand you've also written some books. So you want to tell us about some of the books that you've written?
Sure. The first book was in how AI is transforming security operations centers, the SOCs. And actually, my idea initially was that how we can simplify cybersecurity, which is huge topic. So while writing, I came down to this small area that how AI is transforming SOC. Earlier, it was how AI can transform the cybersecurity, but it was I must say that a big fish to fry.
Yeah.
So that's why it shaped up in a AI transformation of SOCs. Then I wrote another book on AI and us. That's the ethical choices, the biasness, the accountability. That's not that technical book, but in the responsible AI or ethical AI perspective. Then the third book was basically the first book, second edition, which was more focused on practical ways instead of theoretical, deployment methods of SOC. So there I'm talking about the use cases and, which vendor or as per my own research that which are better and, what we can do and how legacy SOCs are not helping and how AI is transforming this industry.
I agree with you on the SOC conversation, and I'd like to, making the case for an OT SOC is definitely a different conversation. A lot of clients that we've worked with that have SOCs, whether they're third-party groups that they've hired or whether they have their own internal, but on the OT side, there's a gap. There's missing because most of those IT groups don't have a fundamental, really good understanding of what's inside a manufacturing facility. Generally speaking, because they don't work there on a regular basis. They're not part of the operations. They're not part of the designing and development of and engineering of these control systems and machine centers that are out there. And so there's a gap, right? But I do see the case for an OT SOC becoming more and more relevant. So have you worked or been involved with assisting and consulting organizations to develop an OT SOC specifically?
Yes, for a few instances, there were like where clients were looking for, the OT socks, and it's a heck of a problem because, the legacy systems and there's a data gap, and then there are like false positive, the operational risk, plus the context, and the tunings are required. The systems are extremely old. How you can like integrate those data logs into the SOC platforms, and if you are doing it, then who is accountable if the AI is taking those actions? So it's like a heck of problems, and I must say that frankly speaking, there is an implementation gap still today where these issues are still going on and they are not addressed.
Yeah, I have a view on that. And we've mentioned it before in prior podcasts where I believe that if you are an IT executive or even the board of a large manufacturing organization or critical infrastructure, is that the gap that you're describing to me is that IT leadership is not reaching across to find out who is doing the majority of the work in these manufacturing facilities. System integrators, engineering firms, OEMs, and building that bridge because of this gap, right? I work in that world, right? The world I come from is on the engineering side, and we don't have CISOs or CIOs calling us to find out about a $20 million machine center that we're developing and designing and implementing for their manufacturing facility to find out what the heck we're doing. What are we putting in there? What is your capabilities? What is your practice? What are your partnerships, right? To assist them with their OT cybersecurity strategy. So either one, they don't really have an OT cybersecurity strategy, or the plant floor is out of bounds for them and they don't want any part of it. And I've seen both of those. I've seen CISOs tell me flat out, I don't want to be the SCADA cop, right? I don't want that job. Well, if you don't want it, then how do we get your OT people engaged in this conversation where they're starting to work with their partners, build the practice, find out who's got those partnerships, and start moving the needle, right? How to get better.
True. Yeah, I am more inclined towards the first thing because, CISOs, they don't have any playbook, any policy, any system, any framework which is talking about OT. So, and usually they are coming from IT backgrounds and now they are CISO for a manufacturing unit. And like, frankly speaking, I came across some CISOs who don't know like what is SCADA, what is a PLC, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah,
so it's such a huge gap.
yeah, well, and the flip side of that is the OT ecosystem, as I call it, needs to get better at this, right? Meaning that if you're not getting direction from the client, then you should be thinking about how you can bring cybersecurity tools to your projects so you can be successful. If the client's out there in left field and not paying attention, we see that a lot, right? They're not ready, they're not there. That doesn't mean that the OT ecosystem who's getting ready to embark upon a greenfield or a brownfield or an expansion or lifecycle replacement of control systems for the client, that they don't bring these tools in to help them and assist them with the projects that they're running. The client, and if the client wants the data, fine, you can give it to them. If they want to participate, great, the InfoSec team, bring them in. But you have to be successful. And these tools are very valuable to that, right? If you want micro-segmentation, you want to follow some type of regulatory requirements, you want to find out if there's rogue assets in the environment, malware in the environment, right? You want to know that before you go in there and start working on a 6-month to a 2-year-long project for millions of dollars and find out that, you're tripping over yourself because there's things in the environment that are being disruptive to you.
True. I summarize this in one word, that is IT, OT cultural gaps, So
Right.
it will take time, but we are trying to align from both sides. As you mentioned, the OT side is also, advancing, and the IT side is also trying to evolve, but it will take time.
Yeah. Well, do you think it's doable on this convergence, as they call it, right? And fixing this cultural divide? Because, like I said, I've been in the industry for almost 4 decades. That's a long time. You can tell by the gray hair. And I've never seen IT and OT really that closely aligned with what the technologies that they use in each other's environment, meaning that If somebody decides I want Rockwell or I want Siemens or Honeywell or GE or Emerson, take your pick. IT plays no role in that. They don't, right? So the controllers that we're talking about, the HMIs, the SCADA software, the DCSs, the distributed control systems, that infrastructure, the computers that they run that stuff, is completely independent of IT's decision making, generally speaking. I'm not saying it's right, but that's, in almost 4 decades, that's what I've witnessed.
My hope is with the AI. What I feel like is that AI will come up with some solution which will be like a black box, which will help talk IT and OT. So obviously, there are hundreds of cybersecurity IT vendors only. In out of any spaces, cybersecurity is the most complex because of how many systems and how many layers or how many vectors we need to secure. And then there is another chapter, totally another chapter, which is the OT side. And again, as you mentioned, those vendors, we never say that Siemens is a cybersecurity vendor, right? So the only thing is that there need to be some bridge boxes, some black boxes, which I'm sure that AI can help us achieve. I give you example of this matter technology in smart devices, right? So smart devices was a chaos till 4 or 5 years back, but now we have this matter, right? So that framework is establishing the IoT connections so that they can talk with IT easily. Similarly, I'm sure that there will be some framework or some black box which AI can help us build, which will bridge this gap.
It's interesting. AI, to your point, might be the thing that smashes these atoms together, right, between IT and OT to actually, start bringing these two groups together because, IT has a lot to offer. They have standardization. They have policies, they have governance, they understand technology pretty well, right? Where on the OT side, it's a mishmash of stuff. You can't go into a single plant and not find 3, 5, 7 different automation products in there. The life cycle of those assets is measured in decades, not in a few years, compared to the IT space. So those are the challenges, right? I mean, I can tell you that I've had IT people who find a Windows 7 machine in their environment. Their first response is get it off the network. Well, it's running a $5 million piece of equipment that's generating $2 million a day of revenue, right? It's not just something I can rip out, right, and replace. So then their position is, well, I just want to ignore it, right? The ostrich sticks his head in the ground, and it's out of my control. That's not the right answer either. But AI, though, is an interesting concept because I think that's going to challenge both sides to have to meet in the middle.
When we are creating the policies, especially in the risk appetite and risk tolerance, I'm sure you have also seen this, that OT is the biggest thing which occurs in that thing, that they are tolerating it, or they have that that window is only for OT, not for IT.
Yeah.
Which is a huge risk.
Do you work around the country, or did you travel to do the work that you do, or?
Yeah, so my focus is Middle East and Africa region, the EMEA region, but some countries of Asia also. So that's my usually the target area. Whereas I've been there in San Francisco also last RSA. I was a speaker there, so I know some of my clients are from Canada and America, so I know a little bit about that side. But frankly speaking, in this side of the world, the legacy systems are so old that we even don't know the names of those operating systems which they are using still today.
Yeah. So being a researcher and an author, do you have any recommendations for our audience on types of events or conferences they should be attending maybe in regards to this? Is there any that pop out to you? Like, for example, have you been to S4? Have you ever heard of S4?
No, I've never been on S4.
Yeah, and it's purely an OT cybersecurity conference. Been around, believe it or not, Adeel for probably over 20 years, maybe 25 years.
Wow.
So yeah, you think about OT cybersecurity, and then there's actually an event that's pretty relevant to our space that's been around for that long. But I just didn't know if there was like RSA, Black Hat, the traditional. There's the IT ones, but then trying to find those OT conferences are few and far between.
And there is one Intersec which I attended. I think that was 2 weeks back only in Dubai. Last year it was in Riyadh, so they are moving in this Middle East region. Intersec is basically for physical security, but they have all these giants which we talk about, the Rockwell, Siemens, Honeywell. They are all there into, all kind of OT stuff. So now this first time they had the cybersecurity stalls also, which were amazing. So I visited them. Conference might be it's in where it is usually. It's in America or which location?
S4, it's always been in Florida, down in the Miami.
It's Florida.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
and
Gotcha.
but I've been going the last several years, and it's a pretty good conference. It's where
Lovely.
you can actually find asset owners that
Mm.
are trying to figure out their OT cybersecurity plan, and you got a little bit of a mix between IT and OT. So
Cool.
it's getting better. It's been a slow roll, in my opinion.
Sure.
The other thing I
Sure.
would say is that, are you familiar with Clarity and Armis and Nozomi
Sure.
and Dragos and
Yeah.
those? That out of all of those, you go back 10 years ago, all of those automation, intrusion detection, cybersecurity firms, only two of them come to mind that are still independent that haven't been bought, and that's Clarity and Dragos. The rest of them,
Sure.
Armis was just recently acquired by ServiceNow. G was bought by Tenable. CyberX was bought by Microsoft. Cisco bought Centrio. I know there's been a few others in there. So we've seen some consolidation, but at the same time, there's still two outliers that are still true to their roots when they entered the market space a decade plus ago.
Yeah, and I'm seeing this trend also that those IT vendors are creating another arm or another business unit or another name of the company for the OT, just like Trend Micro. They have TX1. That is another direction.
They're one of our partners, TX1 is. So yeah,
Cool.
and then their play is a little different. They started from the IPS side, the intrusion prevention system side, and they're starting to drift into IDS on detection versus the ones that I just mentioned were purely intrusion detection systems, right? That integrate into IPSs if you want proactive policies to be implemented based on findings.
Right.
Adeel, is there anything that you want to cover that we didn't cover? I want to make sure that I give you an opportunity to go wherever you want to go in this discussion.
Yeah, I always say that back to basics, prioritizing the fundamentals in this hygiene industrial environment, which is very much important. Your very basic aspects thought they were completed, but usually they are not, especially in OT side. Small things like asset inventory or manage vulnerabilities or implement some strict network segmentation and all. Frankly speaking, these are also like some of the attacks which I'm seeing in today's date and age. They came from these basic things which we have not done. So that's number one. Number two, I need to mention about this third party access control. I'm sure you will also echo this thing. That's a very common blind spot in vendors and contractors, especially on the OT side.
Well, what I will say to that point is a lot of the OEMs and system integrators, they don't keep up with their patching. And, I've witnessed where, a client who has significant risk and vulnerabilities, maybe even stuff that's being exploited in the wild today, where you got an OEM saying if you change the firmware on that machine or if you add something into it, you're going to void the warranty and they're not going to support you. Right. So, they're making the client sometimes fight with one hand behind their back because they're not allowing them to do their due diligence. And that's a little bit of a rub because they're falling behind the times. They're not keeping their patch levels up. They're not continuing to do their research. If they want to sell a piece of equipment, they expect it to be out there for 15, maybe 20 years, and you don't touch it. It does what it does. And they're still in the mindset that, well, it's air gapped. It's not connected to anything. You don't need to worry about cybersecurity. And that's just not the case anymore. Everything is connected. At a minimum, if I go into 10 plants, 8 of them are going to let me take my laptop and go in there and plug it into their network. Then I can have cellular modems on it, or I got Wi-Fi on it, I got Bluetooth on it. They have no idea what I'm connected to. They don't know, and that's the majority, especially when you get into these mid-level players. They're the Fortune 100s, the big companies with deep pockets might have some rules behind that, but even then, if you got a system that's down and you're losing $1 million an hour or $500,000 a minute or whatever it is, they want to get that thing back up and running. They don't care what it takes. Just get it fixed. And I've seen that, right? And that's the difference. That's where IT falls off because they don't want to get that close to the fire. They don't want to get that close to the things that generate the revenue that are kinetically dangerous, they don't want to touch them. Right.
True.
And so that's where I go back to the OT ecosystem has to do a better job. We have to engage in that strategy. I run into those challenges even with my own firm when we're doing, feed studies initially for clients, and the client that doesn't have a cybersecurity strategy, they'll put one word in the RFP that says cybersecurity. One word, cybersecurity. And to your earlier point, well, cybersecurity is a big damn word, right? I mean, it's a boil the ocean kind of term. and so what are the requirements? And when you start digging into it, they're like, that's beyond me, or not me.
I've been
I don't
there.
know
I've been there.
right. So anyway. Well, I appreciate your time. It was great talking to you. It was great meeting you. I'm hoping we get to meet in person someday, maybe at a
For
conference.
sure.
A
Dino, for
really
sure.
good one to go to if you get a chance next November is Rockwell's Automation Fair. It's going to be in Boston next year. That's a really good one to go to. That's a really good show. And you're working with at least one of North America's largest automation technology companies. And the cybersecurity is a big component into their business model.
Lovely, lovely. I will definitely reach out to them and, hope so I can attend in November.
Yeah. We'll put the links to your books in the show notes, just so you know.
Thank you.
So as our listeners are listening to the podcast, they can get to your books.
Thank you, Dino. So kind of you.
Nice meeting you. Thanks, Adeel.
Nice speaking to you. Have a nice day.
Yep.
Cheers.
Have a nice evening.
Thanks for tuning in to the Industrial Cybersecurity Insider. To stay up to date with our latest episodes, be sure to click the follow or subscribe button now. And if you found this podcast helpful or have a topic you'd like us to discuss, please leave us a review or let us know. Thanks again for listening. See you next time.